30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting Truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, September 25th, 2018, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. So the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to put you on the air with your comments and questions. Today's third-hour guest is Tom Kosinski. I'm probably mispronouncing it. He's the author of a new book on the coming Civil War. And as longtime listeners know, this is something I do not wish to see happen. But I'm hearing more and more about it could be a real possibility. You have these two political parties, these two political ideologies that are inflexible and unyielding with each other. And more to the point, one of those political parties is trying to undo the last election. So that to me right there says the glue that holds our nation together is starting to crack. And that's a bad thing. So we're going to be talking to Tom about his new book and what he sees as a real coming problem. And again, I think it's a bad idea, but if it happens, I can't stop it. Okay, Donald Trump earlier today got his chance to address the United Nations General Assembly. He's getting ready to chair the Security Council and scream about Iran here. And basically, Trump sort of fell into this thing of kind of bragging about how great things are going in the United States and how much progress that he's made in just 2 years. And it must have been a little bit over the top, a little bit of the shark, if you will, because apparently his boasting actually drew laughter from the assembly. And Trump said, "I didn't expect that reaction." Well, you may want to rethink your speech writing here. So let's get into the war zones, because there's a lot going on over there. And once again, corporate media is not covering any of this. Right now, they're just obsessing about, well, still about Kavanaugh and about Bill Cosby. Now he's been sentenced. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show here. But Russia has announced several measures that it will take in Syria following the shoot down of the Ilyushin 20 with those people on there. And as it turns out, apparently the version of the S-200 system Syria was using did not, in fact, have the identification friend or foe system. And they've already come on out and said that was the problem. They were targeting the Israeli planes. The Israeli planes dipped behind the Ilyushin, and the S-200 radar locked on the Ilyushin and didn't realize it was a friendly aircraft. So Russia is sending over the S-300 systems. They came on out and said they'll be delivered sometime in the next 2 weeks. and they're going to equip all the headquarters of the Syrian Air Defense Forces with automated process control systems, providing the Syrian Air Defense Force with better intelligence, targeting information, integrating it with the Russian military group deployed in the country. And furthermore, the Russian electronic warfare system will suppress communications, radars, and satellite navigation of combat aviation involved in any attacks on Syria from the eastern Mediterranean. In effect, they've basically put up a de facto no-fly zone. If you are not allowed to be in there and you fly into Syria, everything that your plane requires to navigate and know where it's going is going to shut on down here. And apparently, there's already been noted an increase in the activity of transport aviation at Russia's Khmeimim Air Base in Latakia. And reports also appeared that at least 8 Sukhoi 30SM and Sukhoi 35 fighter jets have been deployed allegedly to carry out combat missions in Syrian airspace. So this is getting really, really serious stuff over there. Now, John Bolton has come on out slamming Russia, saying that the S-300 sail in Syria, that's a significant escalation. Well, how is installing a defensive system to prevent oneself from being attacked an escalation? And the answer is it isn't. It's ridiculous. You know, John Bolton is out there with this attitude about how Israel and the United States have an automatic right to fly into Syria and blow things up, and Syria does not have a right to fight back. How dare they do that? It's against the rules that we just made up here. And then Bolton goes on, and his jumping the shark moment is to say that ultimately Iran carries the blame for the shoot down of the Ilyushin 20. He doesn't exactly say how he comes to that conclusion or what his rationale is for that, but that's Bolton saying it's all Iran's fault. It's all Iran's fault. Iran is to blame here. So basically, the situation over Syria is changing, and Israel and U.S. Warplanes and missiles are no longer welcome, obviously. And the new systems that are being brought in do have the IFF, so there will not be a repeat of Syria shooting down a Russian plane here. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. And so again, this establishes a de facto no-fly zone over Syria. And as you know, Russia right now is maintaining a no-fly zone over the eastern Mediterranean for the next week for the duration of their military drills here. But Russia may have pulled a fast one. Israel was out there saying, well, we're going to have to destroy those S-300s. We can't tolerate them being there, and we're going to destroy them. And we know that Israel has previously basically attacked transport aircraft coming into Syria that Israel believes are carrying weapons. Just shoot them right on the runway here. But leaked photos came on out showing that the S-300s may already be in Syria. And once they're set up and running, trying to attack them is going to be a very, very tricky situation here. Netanyahu's apparently holding a crisis meeting over the Russia tensions, trying to figure out what they're going to do, because they've lost their blank check. Up until now, Israel basically could, fly into Syria, blow things up, fly back out, nothing happened to them. Now it's going to get a little dicey. First of all, I think it caught Israel by surprise that Syria was shooting at them. And now, of course, with these new, more advanced weapon systems being delivered by Russia, going into Syria right now, it has become a high-risk operation for Israel here. Now, despite all of this brouhaha, the reality is that the war in Syria is pretty much over. There is still that group of holdouts in Idlib, which is now under an officially declared no-fly zone. And the U.S. is still out there saying, well, if you dare attack, we'll come on in and give you what for. In fact, during his speech at the UN, Donald Trump once again floated the thing. If Assad gasses his own people, we will definitely give him what for here. But we're already seeing all this talk about how even after ISIS is defeated and all the terrorists are out of Syria, the United States is going to stay there. By golly, we're just going to stay. The reason why depends on who you're asking. And Secretary of Defense Mattis is saying U.S. forces will stay in Syria to provide training to local forces in an effort to ensure stability within the region, a decision that seems to run counter to past statements from President Donald Trump, who's repeatedly threatened to withdraw American forces from the region. And I'm sure the Syrian government is saying, yeah, dare, go ahead, withdraw the forces from the region here. And of course, they're still talking about regime change. They're talking about the American forces are needed to prevent the resurgence of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, forgetting that the United States didn't defeat ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. Syria and Russia did. So meanwhile, I'm wondering what the government of Syria has to say about all this, because we're not getting any information about that. I imagine they've got a few words. All right, let's take a phone call. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
But who cares about the Syrian government? It's what we say, do as we say and not as we do, I mean, that's, Mike, I'm going to get to the Trump UN thing because I think it was pretty asinine, if you ask me. But, Mike, I don't know if you heard, but 6 is a battalion for the S-300. That's 6 times 4 launch tubes. That'd be 24. Supposedly they're getting up to 8. So that'd be 32. But I don't know if you remember. I called back. This was a while ago. I told you, there was the ships. Remember, they leased one out, I think, from Turkey. It was a yellow one. And supposedly those ships, when they disembarked, they laid down this, smoke screen. And maybe then they brought out some of the S-300s they brought onto Hyman Air Base. And then the other ones, maybe because I read they're packing them up now, the components for them, so they're getting loaded up on planes.
Well, like I said, there's these leaked photos showing the S-300s and other equipment being offloaded from transport planes at Hyman Air Base.
Yeah, 8. That's 32. That's a lot of air cover there. I mean, plus the other S-400 they got there. I don't know how many systems of those they got, maybe 2 or 3. And plus, they're all going to be linked together now. The S-300, the S-400 is going to be one combined system with the IFF, friend or foe. So, yeah, if Israel wants to try something, or the U.S., it's going to be tough getting through that unless they have a barrage of 500 missiles.
This may change the U.S. doctrine. They stage a false flag. Oh, my goodness, look what Assad has done this time. And they just go on with a full-on saturation attack to overwhelm Russia's defenses. Because after you have fired an S-300 or S-400 from that tube, it takes a while to reload. So it's not like they can continue to salvo time after time after time.
But as they're reloading, you also have naval assets that can unload theirs on the targets coming in, So, yeah, it's tough. But, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be within the next 2 weeks till the other batch gets there. So something's going to happen. Hey, Mike, on Trump's speech, it was horrible.
Yes.
One paragraph he said, we're not gonna get butt into people's business, and then the next he goes, Germany's being the same, don't buy Russian gas, buy ours, and the same with Sweden. I mean, yeah, they're socialists, but if you just said we're gonna mind our own business, let them deal with their socialists. If it collapses, that's their problem. But he's flip-flop. It's bizarre. It's bizarre, Mike, and he's saying Iran's causing all the chaos in the middle, huh? It's Saudi Arabia and Israel and us. We've been caused all the... Mike, they just had a car drive over 100 children in Sweden today or within the last few hours. Nobody got killed, but, do you think that's coming from Iran? No. Well, he didn't mention one thing against Saudi Arabia or Israel.
Nope.
Not one.
Nope.
And then I look in the audience with Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, and Pompeo. Those 3 look like they're running the show. Trump looked bumbling. He looked off his game. He was I don't know. He didn't look right.
There was one point. There was one point about a minute into the speech where it sounded like he was slurring his words. And I don't know if he's on tranquilizers or what the deal is, but yeah, he definitely was not at his crisp best.
Mike, I did notice that, the slurring of his words. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, they laughed. Nobody believes this crap. Well, the economy's doing well. No, the stock market's doing well because those companies are buying back their stock. That's it. Nobody believes the unemployment. It's all phony baloney, man. Like, I don't even think Trump believed it, the way he was talking. It's all, but it looked like the people in the audience, like, you know, Nikki Haley and them three, they look like the power brokers. I mean, Mike Pence looks like a stiff. I don't know how anybody can support that dude. You know, but yeah, Mike, like, what a joke. What a joke. Like calling Iran the biggest terror. Tell them that all the bloodshed. We all know who's doing this.
Yes.
You know, I mean, how can you go in front of the world and just push these lies with a straight face? You know, it would have been good for Trump as an opportunity if he really believed in America first and honesty in the stock market. He could have just come out and say, we've been arming terror. I mean, he could have just come out and said it, you know, like, which would have been great for the world because everybody would know what's going on. But he didn't, so he's part of the problem as far as I'm concerned now, Mike. Like, I'm not voting for him again. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not.
No, the only way I would support Trump in 2020 is if Hillary runs again. If Hillary isn't there, then Trump has lost my support. I'm sorry. I mean, we all worked really, really hard to overcome the election fraud and keep Hillary from stealing that Oval Office. And Trump has just turned out to be this incredible disappointment.
All right, Mike, have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. Now, there's a very interesting story coming out of Syria. And this came from this military analysis site, Defense Blog. And it's carrying a report that a Russian Sukhoi 35S fighter jet intercepted a U.S. F-22 Raptor over Syria and managed to get radar lock on it, which is significant given that the F-22 is supposed to be the Pentagon's most advanced stealth fighter. And apparently this pilot got an image from the targeting system of his Sukhoi, which is Russia's most advanced yet, and posted it, and it's basically gone all over the web. And but neither Russia or the United States has acknowledged the event. Now, maybe this Russian pilot just got lucky, and he just selected one image out of the video from the targeting system that makes it look like the Raptor is in the crosshairs. I don't know. I can't read the iconography on a Sukhoi 35. But remember, the Russians have been working on countermeasures to stealth ever since they got hold of portions of that F-117 that got shot down over, I think it was Romania. And if they found a workaround, if they found a way to detect these stealthy aircraft, maybe they're not even using radar. Maybe it's a LiDAR-based system. And America's stealth technology won't even begin to work against that. But if this story is true, if the Sukhoi 35 can lock onto the F-22, then that is a major, major game changer. Because both in the case of the F-22 and the F-35, performance has been sacrificed for the stealth capability. And if the stealth isn't working, then they're flying an inferior jet. We already know that the F-35 is a terrible dogfighter. They've test flown it against 1970s vintage fighter jets, and it lost. But what we're seeing right now is a world that is just globally straining at events here. We've got these tensions growing. China, Russia, and Iran are basically taking the world back to a multipolar world order. And that's not what the United States wanted. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the attitude of the U.S. government is, we're now the world's sole superpower. We're in charge here. That was a big part of the agenda for the Project for the New American Century. It was in their policy papers. We're the world's remaining superpower. We're going to act like it. But the United States is an empire in decline. It's bankrupted itself on all of these wars. The rest of the world is tired of being bullied with the U.S. dollar. and people are turning away. When you have the President of the United States of America laughed at as he gives a speech to the United Nations General Assembly, you know that respect for the United States has just pretty much collapsed everywhere. Now, the United States is now vowing to overthrow Iran, and we're seeing destabilization operations where these terrorists are targeting Iranians. Nobody's really sure who did it. U.S. and Israel are obvious suspects. It might have been MEK because MEK was part of this anti-Iran conference that was going on at the same time the terrorists attacked. So Iran is obviously very angry at the Abbas attack. And apparently Rudy Giuliani is out there saying that U.S. sanctions on Iran are leading to economic pain that will trigger a successful revolution, which is a direct contrast with Trump's comments that regime change in Tehran is not U.S. policy. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Attention RBN listeners. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, founder of Front Sight Firearms Training, and Fate have come together to allow RBN to run another fundraiser till the end of the year. We didn't really expect this opportunity, but thankfully it's here and running as you hear this. We've set a goal of 500 donations by the end of the year, which averages around 6 per day, 7 days a week. When you realize all the folks listening to RBN all hours of the day and night, we think our goal is realistic and extremely critical to keep RBN on the air. If everybody listening will seriously assess their ability with firearms and then take advantage of this opportunity, we feel our goal is very conservative. Please take the time to look over Front Sight's website to get an idea of an amazing facility and the world-class training that's going on there. If this interests you, you likely will have like-minded friends that would like to know. Tell them. If for some reason some listeners are not personally interested, consider sons and daughters, close friends, nieces or nephews, top valued employees, inform club members, share the opportunity with police and fire departments. It's not too early to plan Christmas presents for special people. This fundraiser has come at an extremely critical time for RBN because the dire need for equipment upgrades. We're running on the spare tire currently with no money to fix a flat, and the fuel gauge is bouncing on E. This is one of the most valuable ways you can help RBN financially because you get Commander lifetime membership value that is 50 times your donation and can be passed on forever. How many times during life do you get to leave a legacy? See more details and contact info on our webpage, republicbroadcasting.org. And thank you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. To
And
ourselves.
aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And as I was mentioning before the commercial break here, one of the reasons to suspect that MEK may have been involved in the terror attack in Iran, which killed 25 people, is that at the same time, Donald Trump's lawyer, Giuliani, was speaking at an Iran uprising summit in New York City's Times Square, where they're trying to build political support in the U.S. to overthrow Iran's revolutionary government and take them back to the days of the Shah. And Giuliani is out there saying the people of Iran have obviously now had enough. Well, if that sounds vaguely familiar, it's because the U.S. tried a regime change back in 2009. And there were sniper attacks. People were being killed. You got the usual, Iran is shooting their own people. And they really did the full court press on it. And it all fell apart when people noticed two things. First of all, the flag of the new Iranian Republic that was being unloaded from vans and handed to everybody was the exact same flag used under the Shah of Iran. And that gave everybody pause. And then second, the son of the Shah of Iran, who's still alive, started making these press conferences saying that he was ready to resume the peacock throne in Iran. And at that point, everybody in Iran just slammed the brakes on. And at this point, the people of Iran understand this violence is not from inside. They understand the United States is responsible for their economic pain, not their own government. But again, here it's the U.S. government just mucking about in other people's countries just to prove how mighty they are here. Now, an Iranian media outlet close to the Revolutionary Guard published a video clip threatening missile attacks on the capitals of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. This was in a tweet by the semi-official Fars news agency, was then later deleted. I'm not surprised at all. We don't need this kind of inflammatory situation. But apparently Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei blamed Riyadh and Abu Dhabi for the attack on the city of Avaz on Saturday. And again, the whole region looks to be just lining up for a major, major war. And it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be awful, and it could spiral out of control. Meanwhile, as Iran vows that there will be a response to the terror attack, the U.S. is now threatening war against Iran if any American interests are targeted. It's kind of a vague, broad statement saying that if the Iranians target any sort of American interest, that will be war. That will be the excuse for the U.S. to invade Iran and go to war. So, false flag attack coming up here. Now, there was an article over in Sputnik News, which is reminding us all that Iranians have very sharp, clear, and dark memories of U.S.-backed terrorists that have been a plague on their country ever since the United States started coveting the place. So the Iranians are smart people. Yeah, maybe back in 1953, they fell for the lies. They fell for the propaganda. They didn't have an independent media or any way of just really discussing this peer-to-peer with the rest of the population. But the world is a very, very different place. And people understand what's going on. That may be another reason why all those delegates to the United Nations laughed at Trump this morning. They know the game. They know what the U.S. is doing. And they're not going to sit there and be polite by being silent and looking respectful. They know that our nation is rapidly becoming a joke. Unfortunately, one armed with very massive weapons, including nukes here. And by the way, talking about the corporate media, have you noticed that the corporate media is still using all those same talking heads that told us Saddam had nuclear weapons? They still have jobs. Biggest whopper of a lie told to the American people in a generation they're still working. And now, of course, they're out there screaming about Syria and Iran. You know, Assad is gassing his own people. Putin passes wind in the elevators. You know, they're evil. We have to get after them. My response is, okay, if you really feel that way, here's your rifle. Here's your parachute. Here's your day-glow orange jumpsuit left over from the CIA's torture centers, and just go on and have a good time. But we're going to sit this one out because we have been lied into way too many wars, and it's time for it to stop. Israel is continuing to arm the extremists, meaning the terrorists and the jihadis, in Syria, trying to extend its control of the occupied Golan. And Israel's providing large amounts of cash, weapons, and ammunition to the so-called Syrian rebels in the Golan Heights. And this story came out, and then it was retracted as well, apparently from Israel's military censors. We're going to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com. Educate yourself about these marvelous healing devices. We focus on pain mitigation and getting a great night's sleep. Arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. Energy cleaners, $285, shipping included to American zip codes. You can educate yourself all about the energy cleaner right there at my website, the patent application, the wonderful testimonials. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Now, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. I have a toll-free order line, or you can order it right at my website at thelibertyman.com. The toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Thank you.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com, or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider, what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And down in Yemen, the Saudi coalition has decided they're going to open humanitarian corridors out of Hodeidah city and away from the port. And of course, it's not really going to solve the problem. Obviously, the people of Hodeidah are going to want to get on out of there. It's now a combat zone, but it still does not solve the problem of what they're going to eat, how they're going to shelter, whether they can get clean water. Not to mention, they're still dealing with this massive, possibly weaponized cholera attack. So I think at this point we can safely say, yeah, we're in a world war. This is a world war. I just hope that it doesn't go out of control and we wind up flinging nuclear bombs all over the place here. The United States is also apparently at war in Tunisia. And last month, a U.S. Africa Command spokesman confirmed in a task and purpose report that Marine Corps raiders were involved in a fierce battle in an unnamed North African country. Now, this happened back in 2017, and AFRICOM acknowledged that 2 Marines received citations for valor, but withheld all other details. You know, you don't have a right to know. But apparently, evidence has surfaced that the battle occurred in Mount Semama, which is a mountain range in the Kasserine Governorate near the Algerian border. So the United States has sustained its first casualty in action in Tunisia since World War II. Now, the U.S. military's got to be spread really thin right now. They're using up supplies and material like crazy. Over in Madagascar, apparently an American diplomat was found dead at home, the subject of murder or assassination. They've arrested a suspect, but the U.S. Foreign Service is not giving out any additional information about that. So maybe Madagascar doesn't like the way the U.S. is poking into other countries' business here. Erdogan has ordered Turkish, quote, operations, end quote, against political enemies on U.S. soil. And of course, obviously, this is all centered on Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, who Erdogan is convinced was a central player in the failed coup d'etat against him. So he and his followers are in the gun sights of Turkey, which sounds suspiciously to me like wet work on U.S. soil. Turkish agents are going to come on in and they're going to start killing people inside America, which is a violation of our national sovereignty. Now, supposedly, this Fethullah Gulen network numbers in the millions. Gulen himself lives in exile in Pennsylvania and has stayed there since that failed 2016 coup attempt. Pardon me. Over in the Western Pacific, the tensions that continue to build up between the countries there around those islands in the South China Sea are becoming very, very serious. And the People's Liberation Army of China is saying that this China-Japan maritime crisis would actually threaten the Belt and Road Initiative. And of course, China is pointing to the Belt and Road as obviously peaceful development. They don't want to make war. They want to make products and they want to sell them. They want to get them to marketplace, and that's what the Belt Road is about. And apparently at one point, Japan was indicating that they might want to take advantage of that. Obviously, they would have to send a cargo ship from Japan to the coast of China, but that's a lot shorter distance than sending it all the way down through the Indian Ocean and up through the Suez Canal and trying to get to Europe that way. So all these good things that were being done, they're all falling by the wayside as the world just gears up for war. We were going to build such beautiful things. Now we're just going to knock down what's already here. A little bit of positive news, though. Apparently, India is cautiously accepting Pakistan's offer for a meeting between their foreign ministers. Now, Pakistan and India have been making stink face at each other for a very, very long time. and they're both nuclear armed. And it would be nice if maybe they would kind of calm down just a little tiny bit. But if you understand the history of India and Pakistan, it has been hostile since the time of Gandhi. Now, China has strongly urged the U.S. to halt arms sales to Taiwan. And apparently a big issue with China is the sanctions against part of the Chinese military for daring to buy weapons and supplies from Russia. You have to buy from us. And so, along with this $300 million deal to sell weapons to Taiwan, it's just pushing China's buttons again. Now, back in the 50s and 60s, the whole idea of the Cold War was everyone was going to posture that war was imminent, but it never really happened. It came close a couple of times, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, but nobody ever really wanted it to happen. The goal was to scare the domestic populations with the fear of the commies to get their money and just spend it all on weapons. The military-industrial complex Eisenhower warned us about, but nobody ever really wanted a war to happen. This way, the way that the United States government is provoking all these other countries, it's almost like they really want to go through with it this time. And whether that's just going to leave a little ball of ash on which to build the New World Order, one world government, or if this is how they plan to depopulate the human race. Because it's one thing about these world wars, they really do cull the human population in large, large numbers. Over in the Koreas, they're still making all the signs of getting back together, burying the hatchet, if you will. North and South Korea have signed an agreement for an era of no war and pledged to cease all hostile acts. And this announcement was made at the Paekwan State Guest House on the second day of the three-day summit between the two leaders, who both expressed hopes in containing the threat of war on the Korean Peninsula. Well, obviously, they're not going to war with each other. I think what they're worried about, of course, is the United States coming on in and making war on all of them. And those North Koreans remember how badly they suffered at the hands of the United States. The issue of Puerto Rican statehood is now up in the air again. And Donald Trump yesterday declared an absolute no on statehood for Puerto Rico as long as critics of the U.S. government, such as San Juan's mayor, remain in office. So in other words, Puerto Rico can become a state when the entire island's leadership are all rah-rah, America, we love you, Donald Trump is great, and so forth and so on. All right, well, let's get into the domestic politics, because this thing about Kavanaugh, it is just spiraling totally out of control. This thing should have been over long ago. Christine Ford is now making new demands for her supposed testimony on Thursday. She wants it to be held in a small room. She does not want her testimony to be a big media TV show. And so she's demanding that her hearing be held in the Dirksen Senate building rather than the larger Hart Senate building in order to limit media. And the format is still very much up in the air, but apparently they're now splitting into two panels. And one panel is going to allow Christine Ford to talk, will be questioned solo. And the second panel will question Judge Brett Kavanaugh solo. There'll be no interaction. Remember, Christine Ford insisted he was not to be in the room with her. This turns the entire process upside down. Because normally when you have an accusation or an allegation, the accuser, the plaintiff, gets up, testifies, makes their claims. Then they are subject to cross-examination. And then the defendant gets to get up there and give their side of the story and then be subject to cross-examination. And the way Christine Ford and her lawyer are trying to set it on up is that Kavanaugh goes first, and he's not going to know what to defend himself against because Christine Ford hasn't made her statement yet. And then Kavanaugh is done and he doesn't get to come back. And then Ford gets to get on out and say whatever it is she wants to say. And apparently there is another big stink over the fact that the Judiciary Committee is bringing in a professional outside sex crimes investigator. And for some reason, Christine Ford doesn't want to do that. So Christine Ford's lawyer is still out there saying that the hearing is not designed to be fair. We want respectful treatment. And it's starting to look like maybe Ford isn't going to show up. I think what Ford and her lawyer want is for Ford to come on in, read a statement, throwing all these accusations at Kavanaugh, then refusing all questions and leaving. At which point the Democrats are going to go crazy and say, that's it. The accusation is the guilt. You know, we don't need to about presumption of innocence. We don't need due process. You know, if a girl says this, it has to be true. Well, we've kind of been down this road twice before in our nation's history. And the first one took place in a town called Salem, Massachusetts, where a lot of innocent people were executed for the crime of witchcraft on the word of a bunch of hysterical young females. And then during the McCarthy era, the same attitude prevailed. If all it took was an accusation that you were working with the communists to destroy your life. That was a big part of what Edward R. Murrow was trying to do when he was reporting on what Joseph McCarthy was doing. And by the way, Arthur Miller, who wrote The Crucible, which is about the Salem witch trials, wrote it during the McCarthy period, trying to get people to think about what was really going on. So anyway, Michael Bromwich, the newly retained lawyer by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford for her legal team, is now casting doubt on her commitment to appear on Thursday. Personally, I think if she doesn't show, go right to the vote to confirm. So it's not a done deal. They're stalling. They're delaying. By the way, one of the other lawyers, this Michael Bromwich, he's Andrew McCabe's attorney. So all these little deep state connections that are working all around this thing here. Now, interestingly enough, apparently one of Ford's advisor, Ricky Seidman, was caught on audio tape several months ago saying we need a plot to derail Kavanaugh. This was back in July. And so back in July, they were looking at, they got to do something. You know, forget due process, forget the Constitution, forget that Congress, you know, the Senate has to confirm, you know, find a way to wreck this guy. Now, Michael Avenatti, who is Stormy Daniels' lawyer, got himself his 15 minutes of fame back in the news cycle, this time by insisting that he's got a 100% credible witness who is afraid for her life, but is willing to come forward within the next 40 hours. And boy, were the details salacious. And Avenatti literally came out on the media saying that Brett Kavanaugh was guilty of gang raping women at a torture chamber he ran as a student in Washington, D.C. And he also suggested Kavanaugh made satanic references in his senior yearbook. If you squint really, really, really hard and turn it upside down. So he got his interviews on CNN and MSNBC. And he's saying that, this will happen in the next 40 hours. And then all of a sudden, he issues an interesting statement on his Twitter account. And that is that out of concern for safety, this woman will not come forward. They will not bring her forward until she herself is ready. And at that point, Avenatti shut down his Twitter feed. It's marked protected. You can't see any of the tweets that were there about the torture chambers or Satanism or anything. And now here is the payoff. It looks like Avenatti may have been the victim of an internet prank by 4chan, because apparently somebody called him on up pretending to be this former classmate of Kavanaugh and just started feeding him all this stuff. And Avenatti was apparently was just so eager to break the story of the year that he fell for it. And of course, this is not only embarrassing to Avenatti, this is embarrassing to the Democrats, because now we have one of the accusers of Donald Trump clearly having been a hoax. Now, Donald Trump is finally starting to take a more proactive approach to this con game by the Democrats, which is exactly what he's calling it. That's exactly what it is. It's a smear job to try and get the moderate Republicans to vote against him. And I hope those moderate Republicans are smart enough to realize they are being played. They're being played here. And of course, this latest accuser, not the one that was a prank, but the Deborah Ramirez, I mean, there's nothing there. She doesn't even know for certain it was Kavanaugh. Maybe it was him, maybe not. She admits she was very drunk. She admits there are blank spaces in the memory. And this is the best the Democrats have got. Maybe that's why Avenatti fell for that prank. They were desperate to find something here. Okay. And Avenatti's got other problems as well, because as you know, he's the lawyer for Stormy Daniels, who filed a defamation lawsuit against President Trump for his tweet saying that he did not believe what she was saying, that he basically denied it. And so you're calling me a liar. I am suing for defamation. The judge basically came on out and said Trump has a free speech right to make a comment disputing allegations by the adult film star Stormy Daniels. So it looks like he's getting ready to dismiss the lawsuit against Trump. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. by Amazon customers. It works for me. Return to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think the supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And earlier I was talking about it's all a big delay and a big stall. They want to delay Kavanaugh's confirmation vote at least until after the election, where once they know the Democrats are going to have control of the Senate, they'll delay it until after the first of the year and the new Congress comes on in here. And Dianne Feinstein came on out and said that these hearings of Kavanaugh have to be put on hold until the FBI thoroughly investigates all of these accusations that are out there. Well, the FBI has already investigated Kavanaugh 6 times. How many more investigations do you want? They certainly didn't find anything about a torture, dungeon in Washington, D.C. So I can understand why Mitch McConnell's getting a little bit angry. He's trying to maintain some decorum in there and trying to protect the Senate's public image, but that's really getting shredded right now. Meanwhile, GOP Senator Susan Collins, who is one of the critical swing votes in this fight, said that she thinks that a woman accusing Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct should speak with the Senate staff under oath. And this, of course, goes back to Ramirez. And what's she going to say? Unless they're coaching her, unless they're giving her a script to read, what her original report is somebody waved a male member in my face at this drunken party, and it may have been him. I don't know. I was very drunk, and I've got blank spots in the memory. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there except an accusation. The same thing with Christine Ford. There's nothing for the FBI to investigate. Even Tom Fitton over at Judicial Watch is saying this is the latest gambit by the left. Delay the Kavanaugh vote. Just stall, stall, stall. Find a way to stall it. Man, it's amazing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Remember, there was this situation where Dianne Feinstein supposedly got this letter from Christine Ford back in July, which is the same time frame where Christine Ford's advisor was caught on tape saying they needed to work up a plan to get rid of Kavanaugh. And Feinstein, in the 11th hour, turned over a redacted version of the letter saying, we've got this accusation here, burn him at the stake. We don't need a trial. And that's a major talking point. Mazie Hirono is out there saying, no, we don't need a presumption of innocence. This isn't a court of law. We just believe the women, we go forward. So apparently, one of the beautiful things about the internet is it is a network of people with all kinds of different skills working together. And apparently, a professional document examiner, Dr. Danielle Blumenthal, examined the unredacted letter that Feinstein finally turned over. Remember yesterday we said in the second paragraph the font had changed? And according to this document examiner, it's a fraud. It looks like it was written by a third party and not by Christine Ford herself. We'll be right back after these few words.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. You will hear this offer only on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. Tell 5.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And a while back, I was talking about the need to return to civility in our public discourse. And there have been these incidents of officials and politicians literally being harassed while they're out eating dinner at a restaurant. You had Maxine Waters was out there literally telling people, get into their face, get in front, just give them a hard time. And apparently it happened last night to Ted Cruz. Apparently this group of people came on in screaming about Kavanaugh nomination, believe the survivor, vote no on Kavanaugh, and just really gave them a hard time to the point where Cruz and his wife wanted to leave. And apparently, for some reason, the restaurant door was jammed and the staff had to work on getting it open. Nobody knows why they did it. But this group bragged about their thuggishness on Twitter. And again, I don't like to see this kind of thing because it shows that we are, in fact, edging closer to civil war. What happens when somebody gets killed by one of these gangs? Now, a lot of people are still wondering about this article that came out in the New York Times that basically said that Rod Rosenstein had planned to wear a wire to secretly record the president to try and build up evidence for his removal via the 25th Amendment. And there was an article over in 12160.info that basically came up with a rather interesting theory because McCabe and Rosenstein are kind of adversarial right now over what's going on down. And the article in the New York Times may have been from the McCabe camp sending a message to Rosenstein, don't you dare let Trump declassify those documents. If you let us go down, we'll take you down with us. And apparently Rosenstein was actually doing his best to slow roll Trump and keep the truth from coming on out. We need to start demanding those documents be declassified. There's no reason for them to be classified. They're public records. They're not military secrets. Project Veritas has struck yet again. And this is the fourth installment in a series about the deep state. And this report features two IRS officials who are candidly discussing that the IRS is still targeting conservative nonprofit groups. And the two officials in the report are Thomas Sheehy, who's an IRS tax examiner and member of the Austin Democratic Socialists of America in Texas, and Jerry Samasik, an IRS attorney in Washington, D.C. So there's still, and apparently at one point in the video, one of them says, I don't give a blank if it's a crime. So how unbelievably corrupt the system has become here. Moving on to the economic news, the European Union is going to create special payment channels with Iran to basically get around the U.S. sanctions. Europe has apparently decided they're not going along despite all the arm twisting. All they've got to do is figure out a way that they can get money to Iran and get products back that is outside the U.S. banking system and outside of the U.S. dollar. Meanwhile, cryptos took another clubbing this morning. They got to be feeling like baby seals right about now here. Apparently, the trustee liquidating the defunct exchange Mt. Gox has offloaded another $230 million worth of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. And yeah, when you drop that much of it that fast, you're going to send the price crashing. I don't know why they weren't just being a little more steady, letting it out, not panicking people here. Meanwhile, Bank of America and Goldman Sachs are predicting that gold is going to rise and it will go above 1,300 based on the fact that the value of the dollar is being eroded by the U.S. government's practice of just printing more money whenever they need it. And that, of course, makes perfect sense here. When you have a nation and it's got so much worth, and you have a currency out there, you have the amount of currency divided into the nation's worth, and that tells you what the individual currency is worth, more or less. And if you start flooding more and more of that currency out there, eventually its value erodes, and you have to print more of it to keep up. And that gets us back to like Zimbabwe territory, where they were walking around with pieces of paper saying $10 billion for the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Oil prices have hit a 4-year high of $81 because of the looming Iran sanctions, and it's likely to go over $100. And apparently Saudi Arabia and Russia are rejecting calls from the United States to increase production. Now, I can understand why Russia would do that. I'm not sure what Saudi Arabia is thinking here. Maybe they're just thinking they don't want to devalue their oil. They've got a seller's market here, and they're going to take advantage of it. So when you go on out to your car and you fill it up and you look at that gas pump and you are shocked by that new number that is so much larger than it used to be, you know who to blame for that. It's this ridiculous sanctions campaign against Iran. It's all the war hawks that want Iran destroyed. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our Honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. China is sort of sending mixed signals about the trade war. They're indicating that they're willing to talk, but the way they put it is the door is open for trade war talks, but not with the American knife at its neck. And again, that's a very Asian mindset. You know, we will talk as equals, not with you basically threatening us to do what you want. So we'll see what's going to happen there. Here's a little interesting statistic from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and basically talking about consumer expenditures. And back in 2017, Americans spent more on taxes than on food and clothing combined. The average household spent $9,562 on food and clothing in 2017, but they spent $16,749 on federal, state, and local taxes. That's almost twice as much. Now, the question you need to be asking yourself is, are you getting value for that money? That's a lot of money you're spending. Are you getting anything for it that you want? Or is it all going away to Israel and the war machine and the refugees and taking care of the illegal immigrants? Speaking of the illegal immigrants here, the Border Patrol has launched Operation Blazing Sands in the California desert near where they're already starting to build the wall. And Border Patrol has noticed an uptick in smuggling organization activity along a stretch of border in the southeasternmost part of the California desert. And so they've set up Operation Blazing Sands, which is a collaboration between Border Patrol's El Centro and Yuma sectors. So it'll be out there. Now, London is starting to resettle the white helmets from Syria to Great Britain. And I have to wonder what the British people are feeling about this, given the terrible image the white helmets have. Because far from the official story that they're a great bunch of people and they're there just to help, we know that they're the authors of some of these false flag chemical weapons attacks. We know that they're really al-Nusra, just with a different hat on. And so London is starting to bring them into the country. Now, this one is going to shock you. There's a new study that came out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Yale University, and they have found the number of illegal immigrants in the United States is twice that of current estimates, a total of 21.1 million people. 21.1 million illegal immigrants. That's coming up close to 10% of the entire population, and they're all going to be voting Democrat in November. So, up in Sweden, which, as you know, they recently had elections, and the anti-immigrant Sweden Democrats made considerable gains. And so today, in a no-confidence vote, Sweden's prime minister has just been ousted. They've had enough. That's it. They've just had enough. Apparently, Bill Cosby has been sentenced to 3 to 10 years in state prison, and the judge promptly denied him bail. But at least Cosby got a fairer trial than Kavanaugh's getting. Okay. Do you remember Brian Krasenstein? Steen, sorry. He's hailed as a hero of the resistance, of the anti-Trump resistance. And in a secret recording, these people do love to brag about what they're doing. They do love to brag about what they're doing. He admits to being paid for hijacking Trump's Twitter feed. And basically he says the reason is to spam the president's feed and prevent positive commentary from being visible at the top when people scroll through the responses. These people love to cheat. I mean, they're using social media as a weapon now against Donald Trump, against we the people. So, apparently Turkey has fined Google $15 million over breaches of competition. And this is from the Turkish Anti-Monopoly Committee. And it was over breaches of competition legislation in the sphere of software for mobile phones. Now, we're starting to hear a lot of this, even here in the United States of America, that social media, these companies are monopolies, and they should be broken up to bring back diversity of opinion, to basically level the playing field again. So Turkey is dealing with that issue as well. Google is also dealing with an issue in that it admits it's still allowing apps to scan your Gmail accounts for data and share the information. It doesn't say how many have violated its policies. And again, privacy is gone. Privacy is gone. It's open season on the American people. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to protect confidential information. And we're not talking about crime fighting or anti-terror here, because we already know real criminals and terrorists can create their own encryption that nobody knows how to break. We've already proved that. This is about spying on ordinary people. And we know there have been times in the past where the United States government has literally broken into computers expressly for the purpose of stealing business secrets. Corporate espionage. And that's not what the government is supposed to be doing. Apparently, a former Google executive, Anthony Lewandowski, has filed the IRS paperwork to establish an official religion devoted to technology. And this religion will worship scientific progress, but it will also worship artificial intelligence and create its own godhead. This is almost as far out there as the Scientologists. Actor James Wood has now been banned from Twitter, and that's a very high-profile person to ban from Twitter. It really, really is. But at this point, we're seeing a tremendous amount of arrogance, and it may well be that the Democrats are telling all of these social media corporations, don't you worry about it. When we regain Congress, you guys are going to be just fine. We won't let anything happen to you. And as a matter of fact, all the talk about breaking up the monopolies are coming from the Republican side, because they're the ones who are being treated unfairly by all this filtering. Over at the Rutherford Institute, they're denouncing all of this censorship of independent news agencies, saying that it's undermining press freedom. We have social media along with corporate media feeding constant false news, and those of us trying to get the truth out there find ourselves under attack. And if you really look at it, Facebook is becoming literally an arm of the government. They're controlling the online discussion. Now they're claiming they're trying to fight Russian, Iranian, and all those other really, really bad people. But the reality is what we're seeing already. Their job is to enforce the official establishment, Washington, and NATO view of the world. We're good, they're bad, let's go to war. The British government is getting ready to set up a regulator for the internet, which will include a compulsory code of conduct and age verification for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Okay. Now, a lot of us independent media outlets, we are dependent on ad revenues. And it's a two-edged sword, because sometimes dealing with some of these advertising agencies, some are really good, some are not so good. Some are downright dishonest. And apparently, crypto jackers have been using YouTube ads to mine digital currencies on your machine. And apparently it was targeted users through Google's advertising service. So somehow this malware got past all the people at Google who are supposed to be looking out for this stuff and went out over YouTube. And nobody knows how far it's gone. But apparently this malware was found to contain CoinHive that can use up to 80% of your CPU power to generate digital currencies for anonymous hackers. Sometimes I get really disgusted. Anytime somebody comes up with something good, people do bad things with it. Crime is running rampant all across this country, and not just cybernetic crime. And it's another sign of a declining empire. Everybody's grabbing everybody else's money. Apple has other things they need to worry about right now. Apparently, do you remember the iPhone 4 fiasco, where if you held the phone a certain way and your thumb covered the antenna, it was a little stripe on the side, you'd lose your connection? Well, it turns out the latest iPhone XS, users are reporting reduced cell and Wi-Fi reception, that it's not performing as well as the earlier models. And apparently the FCC ran tests that seem to indicate, yeah, it's not connecting as well with the cell towers. It's not connecting as well with Wi-Fi. It may have to do with the new antenna design. May have to do with the fact that there's glass on both the front and the back. There is a company called Square Trade, and they are a device insurer where you can get an insurance policy on your device. They are already started consumer testing on the iPhone XS and the XS Max, and they've discovered that it does not survive a drop from 6 feet. So you might want to get yourself a nice fluffy padded case. But the phone failed every single drop test they put it through. It almost seems like, Apple is out there, pushing a new look and a new menu. But if you really think about it, smartphones have plateaued out. What else can they possibly do that they're not already doing? All right, we got to take a quick break for commercials. We got callers waiting on the line, and I'll be right back.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination of garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite is designed to strengthen the heart and arteries and help the body heal itself. Doctors are not able to explain the improvements they are seeing in their patients' health who are taking Extendivite. People who once needed more pills are now taking less and getting better. Due to the unexplainable improvements in their patients' health, more doctors are calling to order Extendivite for themselves. Help Extendivite make your doctor a believer. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment getting worse.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to go to the phones here to Ken in Fort Worth. Aloha, Ken. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy, howdy, howdy. You ever use Start Page?
Yes, I do.
You know, a lot of times I've been down to public library and I put in Start Page. It might work once, but it won't go back to it. Google, it'll go back to it. Yahoo, it'll go back to it. But some of them they don't want you to use because they can't track you. So anything makes any sense. And someone says they can't.
Well, Start Page is supposed to be all about privacy, but they do, in fact, use the Google search engine on their back end. So you're still going to get the same filtering. I'm using DuckDuckGo myself.
But can they track you? Can they track you?
What, Start Page? No. The whole point of their system is they don't track you.
What's wrong with that?
Okay, can you, turn off your computer speaker because I'm hearing myself in the background?
That probably got us bugged. Hacked into us.
Well, again, a lot of browsers now have what they call anonymous mode or safe mode. We don't know if they really work or not. Everybody's lying about this stuff. But again, if you're not doing anything illegal, I think the time has come to just kind of shrug it all off. If you are doing something illegal, then you better take steps to make sure your communications are secured. The tracking that's being done on search engines is primarily about building marketing profiles.
But they need to listen and learn like anybody else. Write to CIA and tell them what you read. They're no different than anybody else.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing your point of view here, and we're going to let you go and get back here to the news before our top hour guest. Qualcomm has accused Apple of stealing trade secrets described as vast swaths of information. They filed charges in a San Diego court as of last night. And apparently, Qualcomm is concerned that Apple has stolen a lot of their trade secrets. So people look at movies like James Bond and The World of Spies. The world of industrial espionage, corporate espionage, is much, much bigger than the world of spies between countries. All right. Over at the United Nations, and you'd think these people would actually know better, they've accidentally exposed passwords and sensitive data to the entire internet. Apparently, they were using Trello, which is a popular workplace project management website, and they didn't properly secure the accounts. And according to The Intercept, the affected data included credentials for a UN file server, the video conferencing system at the UN's language school, and a web development environment for the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. It was made available to anyone who had the links to the material as opposed to specific users who had to be granted access here. Over in Philadelphia, and this is good news, and it's kind of ironic because it was the Philadelphia Inquirer many, many years ago that first broke the story about the abuses of civil forfeiture and how people were losing their houses because their kids smoked a joint in it, things like that. But Philadelphia has agreed to rein in its civil forfeiture program and pay $3 million to innocents whose property it wrongly confiscated. Attorneys with the Institute for Justice sued in 2014 over policies that let law enforcement take property suspected of being tied to crime even when the owner clearly wasn't part of the crime. And the lead plaintiffs were Markella and Chris Sorovelis, whose home was seized after their son was busted for selling $40 worth of drugs outside it. Neither parent ever did anything wrong. In fact, they were driving their son to a court-ordered rehab program the day the police took their home. Now, civil forfeiture is basically, we're back in the days of the Sheriff of Nottingham and Sir Guy of Gisborne, where their guards are just running across the landscape, just taking whatever they want. Oh, take a pig here, take a chicken here, abuse a farmer's daughter over there, with nobody to stop them. It's like we almost need a modern-day Robin Hood to deal with this. Over in West Virginia, a high school counselor, Melissa Kristnak, is charged with fraud. Apparently, her daughter went to the same school, and the counselor used her access to the school computer system to change her daughter's grades in order for the daughter to obtain scholarship money. And so she's been indicted on 6 counts of mail fraud. Nasty, nasty stuff here. All right, let's get into some of the health news. Water in 2/3 of tested schools in Detroit is contaminated by heavy metals. This is getting to be a national problem and a national disgrace. And I'm sure the bottled water companies just think it's wonderful, more business for them. We'll be right back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The towers.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. So before the commercial break, we were talking about the situation with our water. And again, going back to when I was a kid, which was a long time ago, we didn't have these issues because the government, at least in part, understood they had to care for the health of the American people in order that we would go on working and be more productive and serve the national economy. But going back to the Flint, Michigan water crisis, it looks like government just kind of dropped the ball. They stopped caring. Maybe because, you know, taking care of people who've been poisoned by the water, that's good for the economy. That's a job. You know, we don't make a lot of cars or anything anymore, but if we make each other sick and take care of each other, that's a robust economy. I don't know what their thinking is, but it is an issue. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. If you are concerned about the water where you live, you can get a water testing kit from like eBay. They go for about $30, and they'll test your water for a variety of different things. And following Flint, Michigan, I did that here. And it turns out our tap water here on Oahu, or at least where we live, is actually very good. The only test that came back outside the norm was the water hardness, which actually makes a lot of sense when you consider we're sucking it out of an extinct volcano. But if you are concerned, you might want to consider doing the test because, you know, these heavy metals, they accumulate. And apparently, this is affecting the school system in Detroit, Michigan. They've added another 33 schools that have elevated levels of lead and copper in their drinking water. So, anyway, I did a YouTube video a while back called What Are They Thinking? I should repost that one here. Okay. Remember that story about this Amber Geiger, who is this white police officer, and she shot a man, black man, in his apartment. Now, her story was that she walked into the wrong apartment by mistake, which doesn't pass the smell test. I'm sure the guy had his door locked and her key wouldn't work. And apparently there is a witness who says something else went on down. She's been charged with manslaughter, and apparently she's now been fired. And she's retained a lawyer, and the lawyer is saying, no, it was premature, too early to fire her. You know, we haven't proven her guilty on that manslaughter charge. Actually, it's going to be very hard to get away with that one. She walked into the place, pulled the gun, and shot the guy and killed him. So unless she's going to claim the insanity defense, I think she's going to go away for a while. Over in Indiana, and this is actually good news, there was this Indiana man who was found guilty of molesting a 10-year-old girl and getting her pregnant. What a horrible, horrible thing to do. And he's been sentenced to more than 100 years in prison. Great. I'm all for that one here. A while back, there was this fuss over the Sunspot Solar Observatory, which is one of the big ones that study the sun. Not that they have that much to do right now because there's very few sunspots. But apparently it was shut down and evacuated. And there were all kinds of rumors flying all over the internet about, oh, they discovered space aliens, they discovered Planet X, and all this other nonsense that usually comes out with it. Turns out it was a child porn investigation. And apparently they had been tracking the flow of child pornography, and they traced it to an IP address that was within the observatory. And they had another complaint from within the building that somebody had seen a computer with bad images on it. And the FBI revealed that a janitor at this observatory is the main suspect in the search. He hasn't yet been charged with a crime, even though his name is on the warrant. But apparently there was a potential for this janitor to react rather non-peacefully to being arrested. And that was why they got the rest of the staff out there until they could make sure the place was going to be safe and secure. And it just keeps on going. Over at the Free Thought Project, they have another article. Apparently, a top SWAT cop, a firefighter, and several government employees were among dozens of people busted in a child sex sting operation. Now, pardon me. The sting involved inviting the would-be child predators to a home where they thought they were meeting an underage boy or girl for sex. And when they showed up at the undercover house, they got arrested. Now, this to me sounds an awful lot like entrapment. But I can understand why some people would say, we got to do something about this situation. But apparently there were these individuals who were pretending to be these underage children or the procurers of them, who were prowling around websites where these sort of sickos hang on out, and basically lured them in. So, anyway, these people are very sick, or they're on prescription antidepressants. I really don't get this. I really don't get this at all. It bothers me. If I wasn't trying to stop a war, I think I would want to devote some energy into trying to figure out how to bring all of this to an end. Because it's not about the sex, it's about the power. But mostly, you're taking away the child's innocence. You're taking away their youth. You're forcing them into adulthood. And you shouldn't do that because it's a one-way street. I think kids ought to be allowed to stay kids for as long as they possibly can because it is a one-way street. And I'm even critical of some of the advertising I see that attempts to adultify or even sexualize young children as part of advertising campaigns, or encourages young people to just grow up, be adult, buy this product and whatnot. Leave them alone. Let them be kids. Don't you remember what you felt like when you were a kid? Don't you wish it could have lasted a little bit longer? Out in La La Land, California, you're not going to believe this one. First of all, a little bit of a baseline. In California, you have to be 16 to obtain a driver's license, 18 to buy a rifle, engage in consensual sex, or get married without parental consent. You have to be 21 to buy a handgun, alcohol, or marijuana. But according to a new law that just passed, you only need to be 12 years old to privately seek and consent to treatment for gender transitioning. And this new California law was written supposedly to provide that the rights of minors and non-minors in foster care, as described above, include the right to be involved in the development of case plan elements related to placement and gender-affirming health care with consideration of their gender identity. In other words, it's now legal to get a kid to think, I'm not really a boy, I'm a girl, and 12 years old, yeah, you can go on up and you can get the operation here. And get this, there's taxpayer money being provided for this. And this is another category of, let's leave the kids alone. They'll figure out what gender they are. But there have been a lot of studies of these so-called gender transitioning programs where these young, impressionable kids are not expressing a gender preference. They're being convinced to think it's cool to say that you're not a boy or a girl. There's a lot of social pressure for these kids to just go along and say, yeah, I guess so. Maybe I am. Our whole nation is going crazy. It really is. Or at least the liberals are going crazy. I mean, this is silly. 12 years old? No. I don't think so. At 12 years old, they haven't even really begun to sexually mature yet. How can they know what's going on? This is turning into another racket. You know, you have all these gender counselors out there, you know, convincing kids that they're the other gender, and then they get sold into the grip of the medical industrial complex with the appropriate kickbacks. It's a racket, and these kids are being made the victims of it. Monsanto is trying to get the court to overturn that $289 million cancer verdict on the grounds the Diamond presented insufficient evidence. And of course, we knew that Monsanto was going to drag this out, and the groundskeeper himself, Dwayne Johnson, he'll never live to see the money, but his estate will, his family will. So Monsanto has applied to Superior Court Judge Suzanne Bolanos, who presided over the original trial, asking her to set aside the verdict, reduce the award, or grant a new trial. Delay, 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 delay. Alrighty. We're getting another warning of a deadly flu pandemic. This is coming out of The Sun in Great Britain, which tends to be somewhat sensational. And it's out there proclaiming a deadly flu pandemic like the Spanish flu could happen again, wiping out 400 million globally. Leading flu experts have warned. So get on down there and get your vaccinations. Get your vaccinations. And they're saying it's been 100 years since the 1918 pandemic. Happy anniversary. And there's nothing stopping the flu virus becoming just as deadly again. That part, sadly, is true. It's constantly mutating. But there's something you need to understand about pathogens. A successful pathogen is one that lives with its host. Pardon me. If you have a germ or a virus that immediately kills off the infected, then they don't get to reproduce. They don't get spread around as much. They're not as successful. When measles first emerged, it was very, very deadly. But over time, it has evolved and mutated to a more benign form, where these days it's basically just a childhood nuisance. And ultimately, flu would be doing the same thing unless it's biologically engineered. Apparently, the World Health Organization, though, is very concerned about the Ebola down in the Congo, because being in a conflict zone, people are moving around a lot, and they're having trouble keeping track of who might be infected, who was in contact with the affected. So we're going to have to keep a little bit of a look see on that one as well. You've probably seen the ads on TV about take an aspirin every day and it's good for your heart. Well, it was a good marketing campaign, but according to a recent study, a daily aspirin is found to be completely and utterly useless for senior citizens, has no effect whatsoever. But again, a marketing gimmick. Sell medicine to people who don't really need it. It's one of the things, I mean, Richard Nixon was a crook. There's no two ways about it. And, okay. If you'll give me just a second here, I have to respond. Our guest is trying to Skype with me on my phone instead of going to the show. So, okay. I can't get this thing to work here. Okay, I apologize for this break in the show here, but I need to basically get a message out to this guy, and there we are. Okay. We'll Skype you. And there we go. All right, we're all back to better here. So, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Let's talk about human-caused global warming. And September broke all records for snowfall up in Canada. because apparently Canadians are not paying enough in global warming taxes to make a difference. Okay, thank you. Over in Great Britain, there is a big scandal brewing. Ofgem is the British government regulator responsible for energy, and they have been caught covering up two major scandals in the low-carbon energy industry. And the cost of these scandals involving smart meters and the renewable heat incentive may run into the tens of billions of pounds. And so Ofgem was not protecting the consumer, which is supposed to be its job. It took the side of the corporate interests profiting from those industries. And it tried to use gagging orders to silence two whistleblowers who wanted to blow the whistle and say, this stuff is wrong. They're doing bad things. Now, this story actually broke in The Guardian, which has long been committed to supporting the green industry. But they decided to actually do their jobs as journalists here. Turning to space missions in here, still no word from Opportunity, and people are thinking probably that's been the end of the operation, but it did last a lot longer than it was supposed to. The real scary thing is that apparently the Curiosity rover, the new one, the nuclear-powered one, has halted all scientific operations. There seems to be a glitch in its main computer that's blocking it from sending findings back to Earth. Now, they're going to try and fire up the backup computer inside Curiosity and try and use it to diagnose what's going on. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials here, and we'll be right back after these few words.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. You will hear this offer only on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. Tell 5.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations, A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And during the break, I did another check to see if the Opportunity rover had been heard from, and it's still no. They did actually take a picture of it using the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and you can't see a lot of detail, but it does appear that part of the problem may be that a lot of dust was piled up on top of the rover, blocking its solar cells. So unless one of those little dust devils clean it off like happened before, that may be it. And again, it did last a lot longer than it was supposed to. We had that same luck with the Vikings. The Viking landers were literally designed and the software programmed to take 256 images from each lander, at which point they figured that's it, mission over. And those things just lasted for years and years and years, and we had to rewrite the software to have larger labels on the image names and everything. Here's an interesting little story here. Captain Cook is kind of local history because Captain Cook was supposedly the first European to discover the Hawaiian Islands, although there is evidence that the Spanish may have actually been here before him. But Captain Cook got the credit, and up on the north shore of Oahu, there is a beach and the outlet of a river where Cook is known to have come ashore when he was visiting this island. And apparently, it looks like they have discovered his ship, the HMS Endeavour. And archaeologists from the Rhode Island Marine Archaeology Project pinpointed the final resting place of the ship. And apparently after Captain Cook died, the ship was later used by the Royal Navy in the American War of Independence, and which Britain lost, and they eventually scuttled it with a dozen other vessels off Newport, Rhode Island in 1778. So it's nice to go back and find your history like that. And interestingly enough, a few years ago, there was a reproduction of the Endeavour that sailed into Honolulu Harbor, and they were showing us around the ship, and they showed us this little brass plate that was on the helm, where they had taken a piece of that Endeavour and basically put it on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Okay, over in the asteroid Ryugu, Japan's two hopping rovers successfully landed. This is the first soft landing on an asteroid, and it's a tiny object. It's got almost no gravity, and so they couldn't use wheeled or tracked rovers because they might just tumble off into space. So they've got these little plungers in the bottom that just push them up just a little tiny bit, and they hop across the surface. And so the landers made the rovers made the landing safely. Good for them. It's great stuff. Okay, apparently there's concern that thermal activity in Yellowstone is in fact starting to increase slightly. And authorities have been forced to shut down certain areas of the park after hot plumes of water erupted from the ground several feet in the air. So people are watching that closely. Okay. And there's our music. We're going to take a break for station identification, and we're going to be back with Tom. And I got to tell you, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but we'll be right back to talk about the new Civil War.
people write about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. My wife and I both use Extendivite and are very pleased with the results. It has helped to stabilize our blood pressure and to make both of us feel healthier. Good product and good buy. So far, so good. I've been taking Extendivite 3 times a day, only a short while now, but already I've noticed the circulation in my hands and feet improving. They tingle. I like the idea of taking something herbal rather than pills. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And joining us on the phone is Tom. And Tom, I don't even want to try and pronounce your name for fear I will botch it. How do you pronounce your last name?
Kaczynski. How are you doing tonight?
Just simply Kaczynski. Okay. I'm doing great, and thank you for joining us here. Now, you're the author of a new book, The Coming Civil War, and I don't like the idea that we might see a civil war in this country, on the streets of America, but there are so many people who are talking about it as it being potential. I thought it might be worthwhile to bring you on the show and allow you to share your prognostications and insights on this subject. So can we start by just giving us a little bit of an overview of what the book talks about?
Sure. The book really goes into some of the reasons that are driving us into conflict. And the core thesis of the book is that we're already in a sort of cultural civil war where we have 2 rapidly dividing camps in America between people who think America was a good idea, who represent traditional heritage, identity, faiths, whatnot. You could call it the conservative faction if you like. And then you have a progressive faction that wants to unmake and undo America, that's committed to using government in every way, including ways that are far beyond the constitutional mandate to accomplish that. And they keep importing more people in from other countries and supporting open borders policies with the explicit intent of changing the population, to change the voting habits, to change the laws. And the sad thing is, my personal belief is you can't have a country where you are multicultural and have different ideas of what represents truth, beauty, and righteousness, where the population is perpetually divided against itself, and have it hold together. So while I don't know if the civil war that emerges is going to be a hot military war, what I absolutely believe is that we need to get to a point as Americans as having one set of cultural ideals that is dominant. Otherwise, the country will not be able to sustain itself.
I absolutely agree. And I think we're certainly heading for a period where we're going to see a lot of violence in the streets. I mean, look what happened to Ted Cruz at that restaurant. Where liberals are literally being encouraged to confront on the border of violence conservatives. And at one point, do they cross the line where somebody gets seriously hurt, or worse, they get killed? And I'd like to find a way back from all of this, but it does seem as if both sides are intractable, or even more so, the liberals are caught up in this utopian fantasy that they can actually make a much better country if everybody just does things their way, which obviously I don't agree with. The whole idea of having a free country is that everybody's free to mind their own business and live their own lives as long as they're not hurting each other. But this totalitarian regime that seems to be emerging within our midst, it's going completely the other way. And there's a lot about modern liberalism, which does remind me of the former Soviet Union in terms of constant surveillance, control over every little single aspect of our lives. We've gone from a society where you could do anything that you wanted if the government didn't forbid it, to a society where you can't do anything until the government gives you permission. And that's a bit of a shock. Now, for younger people, they may just think it's the way it's always been. When you're my age, you understand, no, in point of fact, we have lost a very great deal of what made the United States such a great nation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. It's funny you say that. The first book I wrote was called Someone Had to Say It, The Hidden History of How America Was Lost, and it went into exhaustive detail about how the subversion of American culture and American government was quite deliberate. And we see from the 60s onward the effort where the left took control of all the cultural centers of our country, whether it's professors on universities, whether it's the mainstream media, which started out with the press and the papers, or whether it's the big tech companies today. One of the things that makes it so difficult for us to compete is that we see more and more that right-wing voices are being isolated, that they're being demonetized, deplatformed, and all of the opportunities for us to have civic discourse and to debate issues logically are being shut down by the left, as they, having lost the battle of trying to do that the right way, have reached this point where they think the only way they can win is through censorship, control, and totalitarian efforts that are more reminiscent of Stalin than anything else.
Yeah, very, very much so here. And it is a very one-sided discussion. And what was it John F. Kennedy used to say? When peaceful revolution becomes impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable. And I think the logic behind that applies to this push toward a very divided society. And unlike the original Civil War, where there was a clearly demarcated line on which these were the good guys and these were the bad guys, depending upon your point of view, it's almost like the potential combatants in a new civil war are blended together. They're homogenized. And because you have liberals and conservatives pretty much everywhere, although the liberals tend to be on the coastal areas and the conservatives tend to be in the heartland. But then you've got the refugee issue, the illegal immigrants. It's all been blended together. If actual violence starts, breaking out, where are going to be the borders of it? Or is it just going to explode everywhere?
Well, it's very hard to say because it won't be like the first Civil War in that you have states, but there are sort of boundaries. The book goes into 4 different vectors, let's say, on which the fighting may occur. And people understand left versus right. That's pretty simple. And there is a racial component to this because what will happen is you look who votes different ways. It's pretty easy to predict that whites are going to vote Republican and non-whites overwhelmingly don't vote Republican. There is a culture issue between Christians, traditionalists, people who respect American heritage versus progressives, Muslims, and items like that. But to answer your specific question, one thing I identified in writing this book is that the biggest gap in the country is between the city and the rural areas. And so if you want to think what the lines might look like should a fight break out, what I suspect you would find is the cities would be under siege from the country folk who would no longer send them the goods they need to survive. And if you look at it from a leftist perspective, just think about this for a second, because you were talking about Ted Cruz being assaulted. How many cities are basically in their own miniature form of secession now by refusing to deport people who do not belong there, by having illegal sanctuary city laws and having selective enforcement where if an Antifa hoodlum comes down and commits violence, they won't be prosecuted. But if a right-wing prayer warrior were to be indicted, he'll be thrown in jail for 10 years. It's crazy, but no one's calling this out because we're so used to looking at things at the federal level. We don't see the breakaway already happening below us between the culture, the universities, and these big cities that are overwhelmingly run and have been destroyed by Democrats.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the same thing with the universities as well. I think one issue is that unfortunately, and this was true even before the deplatforming began on social media, is that conservatives, by and large, tend to be kind of quiet people, whereas the liberals have been encouraged to just become more and more vocal, screaming, crying, whining, tantrum, and as a result, they tend to draw more attention to their particular position, and conservatives are kind of being left behind. Certainly, the bias in the corporate media doesn't help that either. But I think conservatism is definitely underrepresented in the public consciousness right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and it's an amazing thing because there's a market there of 100 to 180 million Americans that just is not served, and it's sort of crazy when we look at our system that we don't have more people out speaking to the conservative cause. The good news is, though, that the liberal overreach that we see is really revealing how they would govern and how they like to rule. And I think a lot of people are being motivated now to stand up against what the left is offering. And in the short term, I'd have to say the terrible way in which Brett Kavanaugh is being slurred and slandered is going to wake up a lot of Republicans and conservatives who maybe got a little complacent with all the success that Trump was offering. And I think people need to realize we don't have the numbers or the time to just sit back and let things happen. We need to go ahead and do whatever we can to go ahead and ensure that this government has a workable majority and to use that majority in such a way to act aggressively. And I say that because the big fear that I have, having researched this carefully for the coming Civil War, is that if conservatives just sit back and let the left do for the next 30 years what they did for the last 30 years, our children will be living in Venezuela, and I don't think anybody wants that.
Well, I would agree with you on that one. Our children may actually be sent to Venezuela sooner than that because they're talking invasion, but I digress. I think one of the things that we need to keep focus on, yes, the way that Kavanaugh is being treated is reflecting very badly on the Democrats. I'm concerned that they're convinced they're going to steal the election in November, and that's why they're willing to behave like this, because they don't think it's going to have an impact on them. But if the Republicans want to have a chance in the midterms, they got to stand up to the Democrats, and they've got to do it right now. If they don't push through the vote and confirm Kavanaugh right now, they'll be seen as bad and corrupt as the Democrats by the voters, and the advantage they have coming out of the confirmation hearing will be pretty much erased. And what's amazing is I'm not seeing any kind of really decisive leadership on the GOP side. Over on the Democrat side, you've got all these people who are out there whining and crying like Maxine Waters and Dianne Feinstein. But on the conservative side, I understand they want to try and maintain a sense of decorum and dignity. And I also understand that people on the conservative side are being ignored pretty much by the media. But they need to get more aggressive. And I understand Mitch McConnell is on the point of losing his temper and saying the vote is going to go on through. But at this point, I almost think they've let the Democrats get away with way too much. And the American voter may be seeing them as weak.
I agree. I think it's unfortunate that the whole Republican Senate's been held hostage by the combination of Senators Collins, Murkowski, and Flake. And as someone who lives in Maine, I can say there is immense frustration up here with Senator Collins, and our apologies to the rest of the country for what she's doing. It's really unfortunate that a good man is having his name slurred and slandered, and that the Republican, party is not working more aggressively on this, because I agree with you that the best thing they can do is to get Kavanaugh through. However, I do think there is one silver lining if this charade actually works, and the Republican Party will not deserve success if they cannot manage to put Kavanaugh through. But nonetheless, it will turn the midterm into a referendum on whomever will be the next election, and I suspect Trump, being the savvy politician he is, he will pick someone like Amy Barrett, perhaps, that would go ahead and get around the sort of sexual innuendo issues. And if you think about it, in races like Missouri against McCaskill, Manchin in West Virginia, or Tester in Montana, even though I think it's bad for the country to have the court be so politicized that we turn midterm elections into referenda, it might not work against them, even though it should. And I guess it goes back to that old dictum, it's better to be lucky than good. So I think there's some upside for the Republicans if things go poorly, but they certainly don't deserve it, and they shouldn't take the chance of something that is by no means a sure deal.
Well, yeah, because the midterms, I mean, we know how crooked the 2016 elections were. We know how the DNC literally stole the nomination away from Bernie Sanders. We watched how the Republican National Committee fought tooth and nail to keep Donald Trump from winning that nomination. And we also know there's a major problem, first of all, with election fraud itself and with illegal immigrant voting. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a brand new MIT Yale study that just came on out saying that the number of illegal immigrants currently in the United States of America is at 21 million. That's edging up on close to 10% of the population, and they're all going to be voting Democrat. And it astounds me. The thing I cannot figure out is Trump has to know that his supporters in 2016 fought tooth and nail, not just to get him the majority of the votes, but to get so many votes it would overwhelm the very obvious vote fraud that was being used against him. And knowing that election fraud is a problem, why has he not tackled this? I mean, he did start up that Election Integrity Commission, and then the commission went out to all these state election bureaus and ran into a brick wall. Which right there is the giveaway. Something crooked is going on. So Trump just shuts it all down, and he hands election integrity to the Department of Homeland Security. All they're doing is saying we're going to make sure that nobody can hack into these electronic voting machines from Russia. But Russia isn't the one who was hacking into the electronic voting machines. It was much more local. So I don't understand why Trump doesn't realize that by not addressing this issue early on in his administration, he's handing the midterms to the Democrats, and he's going to be a one-term president.
I think that one of the real tragedies of the Trump administration to this point has been the complete failure of the Department of Justice to do anything except serve as a hindrance to what they're trying to accomplish. You know, if we had had more effective leadership from Attorney General Sessions and all the other people beneath him, we could have been investigating these questions and acting upon them. And I think it's a real lost opportunity that needs to have been handled very differently. I agree with you 1,000% that immigration is the motivating issues for Republican voters. I think one reason that Trump hasn't done it to this point has to do with moderate Republicans in Congress who think that the old formula to try to centralize and try to get a certain percentage of, you know, suburban female voters is the way to go. And unfortunately, Trump in this case is a little bit hostage to the Congress. And to be honest with you, most Republicans who I talk to personally are incredibly frustrated that while they liked the tax bill, they weren't able to get any nationalist action, which is to say the border wall, immigration reform, or even the repeal of Obamacare, which was something every one of the people there had campaigned on, accomplished. And while I don't know if it's going to lead to Trump being a one-term president, I think I'm a little more optimistic than maybe you are, just because of how abhorrent the left will be if they get in power and what they'll do. I think it's an incredible lost opportunity at a time we don't need to have that. And Trump was given a mandate to show revolutionary leadership, and I can only hope and pray that he has some plan which we're not seeing, because what we've seen to this point isn't good enough.
I agree. I absolutely agree. He's been a huge disappointment. And again, the issue of immigration and the issue of election integrity are both issues Trump should have just started on right from day one. The other big mistake I think Trump made was coming into the White House. He wanted to be magnanimous in victory, and he allowed all these Obama holdovers to remain in their jobs. Now, I'm sure Trump, coming from the world of business, was thinking that, well, they'll be loyal to me now because I'm the new boss, and that may be the way it works in the world of business. That's not how it works in Washington, D.C. Trump should have gone into that executive office building and just scraped it out clean right to the walls and brought in all new people from outside the Beltway who are not compromised by their existing connections with the so-called deep state. My concern for the November elections is there's going to be massive fraud. They thought they had it in 2016. They thought Hillary was going to be it, and it took them by surprise when Trump won. And I think they're going to just double down their efforts this time. They're not going to let it get that close. And so, again, I'm disappointed Trump just dropped the ball on this.
Yeah, I agree with you about the election fraud. I remember election night in 2016 that, they were looking for more votes in Michigan, which seems to have infinite votes coming out of Detroit whenever they're needed.
Yes.
Like there were some districts, precincts where there were more votes cast than actual voters registered. And that's why that recount disappeared, because they realized they couldn't go through with it or they'd show the fraud. I think it's incredibly disturbing that we have electronic voting. It's disturbing who owns those companies like Diebold, the connections they have to people like the Soros Foundation. And I'll tell you something interesting that I kind of learned. People don't trust the process.
Tom, I'm sorry. I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercials. Yep. And when we come on back in 3 minutes, we'll just pick right up on this topic.
Extendivite, made from garlic, cayenne, bilberry, hawthorn, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle, feeds our body with the nutrients we need to keep healthy. Just listen to what Arthur had to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product. Thank you very much.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Attention RBN listeners. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, founder of Front Sight Firearms Training, and Fate have come together to allow RBN to run another fundraiser till the end of the year. We didn't really expect this opportunity, but thankfully, it's here and running as you hear this. We've set a goal of 500 donations by the end of the year, which averages around 6 per day, 7 days a week. When you realize all the folks listening to RBN all hours of the day and night, we think our goal is realistic and extremely critical to keep RBN on the air. If everybody listening will seriously assess their ability with firearms and then take advantage of this opportunity, we feel our goal is very conservative. Please take the time to look over Front Sight's website to get an idea of an amazing facility and the world-class training that's going on there. If this interests you, you likely will have like-minded friends that would like to know. Tell them. If for some reason some listeners are not personally interested, consider sons and daughters, close friends, nieces or nephews, top valued employees, inform club members, share the opportunity with police and fire departments. It's not too early to plan Christmas presents for special people. This fundraiser has come at an extremely critical time for RBN because the dire need for equipment upgrades. We're running on the spare tire currently with no money to fix a flat, and the fuel gauge is bouncing on E. This is one of the most valuable ways you can help RBN financially because you get Commander lifetime membership value that is 50 times your donation and can be passed on forever. How many times during life do you get to leave a legacy? See more details and contact info on our webpage, republicbroadcasting.org. And thank you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking with Tom Kaczynski, author of the book, The Coming Civil War, which you can find at Amazon.com. And Tom, before we get back to the issue of election fraud, we have a caller on the line with a question. Art off the grid, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I agree with you. At this point, I am of the opinion that Trump is definitely going to be a one-term president because of what we've seen thus far. Yes, he's done a few little oddball thingies here and there, but nothing that anybody I know of has really benefited from. But the big thing that sticks in the craw of myself and others that I know are, one, he talked about draining the swamp, and as you've stated, he goes in there and he keeps all these Obama holdovers. That's not draining the swamp. He talked about during the campaign he was going to, one of the first things he was going to do was have the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation investigated, and no sooner than he's declared the winner, he says, oh, I think the Clintons have suffered enough, and he lets that one go. That was a big disappointment for a lot of people. And then he caves, and knowing full well, I would hope he would know, under the Constitution, he has the full authority to say, no, these people cannot come into the country, and he's got that authority to dictate, immigration. He's got that authority,
yes,
but yet he let Congress bully him into backing off.
Tom?
Yeah, so I agree with what the caller is saying here, and I think a lot of people are frustrated with that. I think one of the problems that Trump had when he came in there is that, as you said, he tried to be too magnanimous. But I think another problem was, he didn't have control over anything in the federal bureaucracy. And I'm not apologizing for Trump, but I'm saying that he should have, maybe like Andrew Jackson, come in with his own team ready to go and just go ahead and do things. But if the Congress wasn't willing to appoint his cabinet officials, run with a kitchen cabinet. And I think people wanted that sort of revolutionary leadership from President Trump. They haven't gotten it, and sometimes, the perfect is the enemy of the good. It would have been good had he kicked all those swamp dwellers out, and now we're stuck playing games that they love and they know best that are just eating up the months of this administration. But I think this is the problem, right? So people are going to watch and see someone like Trump get in there, who I think was legitimate in his intentions, at least, to speak to reform, and see how badly he failed in terms of being able to accomplish it to this point, and then say, well, if we can't even have any success when we elect a president, what other options are left to us? And that's one of the premises of the book, which is that if the right wants to succeed, it's going to have to be very aggressive in acting against these institutions. Like, to be honest with you, the FBI, the CIA, all these entities, they deserve to be heavily examined. The Fed should be audited. These are things Republicans have been talking about for 10 or 15 years, yet no one ever seems to want to do it because the donor class, which goes ahead and puts in the Republicans in the House and Senate, basically is part of a uniparty type system that really isn't representing the conservative views that many Americans hold.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of us, like the group that I run in, we're pretty knowledgeable about this. And we understand, as Colonel Allen West of Florida once said, the President of the United States is the CEO of a corporation known as the United States. And one of the reasons why we threw our weight behind Trump was because we're looking at a businessman who knows how to run a business, and who better to run a massive corporation than someone whose entire life was built upon wheeling and dealing. And anybody knows, I grew up in several different businesses. Between my mom and dad, they owned several businesses as I was growing up. And I know what it's like when you buy a company and you come in and you take it over. The first thing you do is you flip the staff. That's number one on the agenda. You get rid of everyone who's been a problem and you replace them. And there's nothing wrong with running on a skeleton crew. In fact, a skeleton crew sometimes can be much more effective than a full staff. And this is what we were hoping for, and this is not what we've seen. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the dialogue. And I'm looking forward to the next half hour.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call, Art. And Yeah, I mean, who was it who said that government governs best that governs least? We have gone so far away from that wisdom, and government is huge, it's bloated, and sometimes it can't get out of its own way. More importantly, and this gets back to the FBI and the CIA and the Department of Justice, it's clearly factionalized. With all of these various agencies thinking that really they should be in charge. And that's always been a risk with intelligence agencies. It goes all the way back to when the CIA was first being formed, and Harry Truman expressed his concerns about that as well. But when Trump came on in, he should have immediately replaced the heads of all of these departments and agencies. We have had, 3 attorney generals in a row now that absolutely will not look at the very real crimes being committed by liberals, but they're totally obsessed about doing whatever they can against conservatives, like this ridiculous Russiagate investigation. Anyway, Tom, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page, and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Tom Kaczynski. He's the author of the book, The Coming Civil War. It's available at Amazon.com. And basically, Tom is saying the new Civil War is going to be vastly different than the first one, which was the blues and the grays and border. It's going to be more of factions spread all over the country, at war with each other. And the cultural war is definitely well underway between liberals and conservatives. And you would think the liberals would be self-destructing at this point with some of the stuff they're coming out with, like, men can use the ladies' restrooms and 12 years olds can get sex change operations out in California. But somehow they continue to hang on. And they have the support of the corporate media and the corporate social media. But the friction is definitely building. We're seeing all this Antifa violence that we're out there. And it's funny that they call themselves anti-fascists when they're working from the fascist playbook. So I agree with your earlier statement that the Civil War in this country has already begun, although it's at the moment, very low key. But it does seem to be ramping on up. Now, you talked about 4 vectors before, of which one was, I think you said the first one was racial. Just give us an overview of the 4 vectors.
Sure. So the 4 vectors are ideology, which is left versus right.
Yes.
Residency, which is city versus country. Race, which is whites mostly against minorities mostly. And the other is traditionalists versus progressives. And here's the funny thing about it. Let's say things get to fighting, which we all pray it doesn't, but if it gets there and you don't know who are your friends and your enemies, you might know a couple of your neighbors, but that's it. What's going to happen is people are going to make a lot of assumptions based on stereotypes.
Yes.
It's a sane and rational thing to do when you have no other information. And so what you find is that even though these groups don't necessarily all work together or think the same way, if we have a cultural civil war where Christians are attacked, the people who will defend them are probably going to be white country folk who own guns and who go to church. Or if the Republican, if Trump, God forbid, was assassinated and there was an uprising, it would be Republicans who would be white country folk who own guns. And the same thing happens on the left. So what the unique thing this book realizes is that any one of these conflicts represents a fault line that is so heavily divided and where the lines line up so much between a group of 4 on one side and a group of 4 on the other side that we could end up in a fight very quickly, because the left might want to pick the fight based on race and on their anti-white agenda that they go out there.
Yes.
Or the right might decide to pick the fight on, let's say passage in a future administration of limitations on the Second Amendment. But it doesn't really matter how the fight's picked, because there's basically 2 groups of people. People who think America as it was good and we need to go back to that, and people who think America as it was bad and we need to transform it. And I don't know that you have an in-between ground that you can realize there. And what's really difficult is as that group of progressives gets larger and larger, and the book goes into the demographics of this, who's coming into this country, who's having children, birth rates, voting habits. All of the things suggest that the left will win this fight if the right doesn't act decisively in this moment to change how America works. And if Trump doesn't do it, someone is going to have to emerge behind him and quickly, who will follow through on all the promises that he made and then some.
Yeah, I don't know who that might be. I mean, I was a big supporter of Ron Paul when he was trying to run for office. But as you know, our system is biased against third parties. And now we find out, because of 2016, that the party machinery is biased against the voters. And I remember when this whole big stink about Bernie Sanders came on out, Dianne Feinstein said it's perfectly okay for the party leadership to pick the candidate. Well, then why bother having primaries? That's what I want to know. They're just maintaining the illusion that we, the people, still have some control. But it's party politics. Again, like the old Soviet Union, the party picked the candidate, and by the time voters got to vote on anything, it was already decided. And we're seeing exactly the same system here. And as far as that middle ground goes, I think there could have been a middle ground. I'm obviously, raised in New England, raised conservative, but there are some things I think, progressives had some good ideas. I think the crisis that the left is facing today is they're out of really good ideas. And that's why they're coming up with all this wacko nonsense about, gender fluidity, and restrooms, and this constant victimhood of just trying to find things to be offended about so they can go on the attack to try and silence conservatives because they've run out of ideas. But in the middle of it all, it does feel like our society is tearing itself apart, because when you have two parties and they have an election and everybody honors the result of the election, then you have a country. But if you have an election and the losing party is saying, no, we don't accept it, we're going to try and tear it down, then you are hovering at the edge of anarchy. And we saw since the Trump victory, they were having riots in cities. They've come up with this Russian nonsense. They're talking about the 25th Amendment. They are openly trying to bring down the duly elected president of the United States of America, and conservatives ought to be really outraged and voicing that outrage, because whether you agree with Trump or not, and I'll be the first to say I'm very disappointed in him, he did win the election. And we're supposed to be a nation that plays by the rules. But we seem to have lost that, primarily on the left as well. And we're seeing it again with this abysmal way that Kavanaugh is being treated, where Hawaii's Mazie Hirono was literally out there saying, no, we don't need a presumption of innocence. He doesn't get that. Forget due process. The word of the accuser is enough, and we've got to get rid of him. And they're just frothing at the mouth, trying to find some way to either get him out of there or delay his confirmation until after the first of the year, on their assurance they'll then be in control of the Senate.
Well, I think there's a lot of really good points you made there, and I want to unpack two specifically. Number one is why they have these crazy social agendas. What the agendas do is they first are a huge distraction that divide people, and it keeps people from looking at the money. It keeps people thinking, oh, we need to fight over these issues. And it's funny how the solution every time there's a bad idea is to more government.
Yes.
And you see the left always say, let's make a committee for this, let's make a function for that. And the government now is involved in so many aspects of our lives that are, beyond even just constitutional authority, or completely beyond common sense. And yet the left uses its cultural influence to go ahead and attack and destroy anyone who speaks sanity to this insanity. I mean, most people think transgenderism should be treated as a mental disorder, and that these people shouldn't be receiving, money for operations. They should be serving treatment to understand that, men and women are the two genders. And we don't have that anymore. The second part that is disturbing to me is we were talking before the last break about elections and the voting machines. And an interesting survey, if you look after an election, in an election when the Democrats lose, 80% of Democrats believe the voting machines were fixed. After an election when the Republicans lose, about 85 to 88% of Republicans believe the election was fixed. So even though you won't ever get a poll where it says that 85% of Americans don't trust the voting machines, the reality is when people are stressed and pressed to look at the results that come up, if their side doesn't win, they don't believe in the process. And so when we have a deep state that doesn't serve the people, elections that are beyond questionable, candidates that are bought and sold, it's a question, how much can the American people take before they decide to take matters into their own hands? And given that we've had a failure of leadership in Washington, the reason I wrote my book was I realized that under these conditions, with all this division, if we face any severe challenge, whether it be natural, artificial, whether it's created from politics, or whether it could be just a bad enough disaster, I am not at all convinced that our country will be resilient enough to survive. And I think people need to be really aware of this and begin thinking in their own lives to have people around them they trust and they know, because if the left does come back into power, we've seen out of power how willing they've been able to go after conservatives and voices on the right generally. I can only imagine how much worse it will be when we have people like Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder, the next generation, coming back into power. And to say something that I've said in other places that's really controversial and blunt, I would rather take my chances on finding a different path forward than another 8 years under someone like Obama. And I don't know if other people feel that way, but I think that we've seen what that looks like. And we know that for the Constitution, the rule of law, and the protection of, our borders, that would be a death sentence.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And again, the push for open borders is basically coming from two places. And the first one, of course, is George Soros, who's pushing for the one world government, new world order. And the strategy there is to just blur everyone together all over the United States, all over Europe, so that we lose our sense of cultural, regional identity. As far as the illegal immigrants pouring across that southern border, the Democrats literally are dependent on them to win the election. The Democratic leadership has openly said, yeah, we need these illegals to vote us back into power. And yet they're not supposed to do that. Again, it's against the law. And great that Donald Trump is starting to build the wall and everything, but under Title VIII, the laws already exist to deal with this problem. You were talking before about another committee, more government, so forth and so on. Every time there's a crisis, somebody says, we need a law to do X, Y, Z. No, we don't. We've got a lot of laws. They're not being enforced. And especially under Title VIII, if you were to just use Title VIII and just start shutting down all these people who are aiding and abetting the illegal immigrants, all those who are giving them employment, the laws are already on the books. And as far as the secessionist cities and states that are running the sanctuary cities, there's a section of Title VIII there where these mayors and governors can be arrested and thrown in jail. Now, is this issue going to lead to a point where we might actually see states start to secede over these different points of view? We know there's been a lot of talk about it in California. We know that Texas has been flirting with secession for a long time. We've got an independence movement going here in Hawaii, and I understand there's one up in Alaska, because we're all kind of getting fed up with all this nonsense coming out of, Sodom on the Potomac.
Well, and I'll tell you the truth, there are people who think that way up here in northern New England as well, because everyone is questioning why we keep investing all of our effort and energy into a system that just isn't working. And, with respect to the sanctuary cities and the people who are, existing in violation of Title VIII, I think that most Republicans and conservatives would support the Trump administration if they went ahead and took action against those officials which are not doing their lawful duty. But, this is the problem when the right comes into power. The left, when they come to power, are ruthless in how they go about, using it. And when the right comes into power, it refuses to act. And if we continue fighting on the back foot, I don't see how we can actually win this thing. The laws exist on a reason. There is a popular mandate to go ahead and enforce the borders. We need to go ahead and do that. And, the idea of having more government is totally the wrong way to go about it. And if, we need to empower the states, whatever we need to do, that's fine. But if all we're going to do is continually go back and forth and play ping pong in Washington while people are getting rich, I think people in every part of this country are right to ask, why are we invested in a system that isn't working for the benefit of the people?
Well, you've touched on an important point there, because underneath all of the ideology, underneath Trump's obvious failings, the reality is that there is unprecedented degrees of corruption throughout the entire federal government. And we keep seeing this over and over again. The same players keep coming on back. We know that there should have been a full investigation of the Hillary Clinton email server issue. There should have been a full audit of the Clinton Foundation, which, by the way, fails to qualify for a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. But again, we have seen James Comey and Loretta Lynch and all these people who are openly protecting this dark heart of our United States. And the corruption of the Clintons, of course, goes all the way back to mid-1980s in Arkansas, when Bill Clinton, as governor, was overseeing the U.S. end of the gun and drug running operation run by the CIA into Nicaragua. And everybody got rich along the way, and it's one of the big, deep, dark secrets of history. But because the Clintons have so many of these deep, dark secrets, they're virtually untouchable. But meanwhile, you've seen the machinery of government just go after Donald Trump on a myth, a fabrication, this Russian dossier, which turned out to be completely bogus. And Robert Mueller has been trying to find some way to link Trump with Russia for over a year and a half, millions of dollars involved, and he hasn't found it. And it's time for him to go. And of course, the liberals want him to keep that investigation going so they can campaign on it in the coming months.
Well, absolutely. And, I think the other reason why we saw the Russia probe, to be honest with you, is to cover what the Democrats did themselves.
Yes.
You look at the sale to Uranium One of 20% of the United States uranium to Russia. You look at President Obama, his famous hot mic, where he was talking to Medvedev and saying, I'll have more ability to do things after the election. I think that if we were going to look and see who got goods from Russia, and not just Russia, but to be honest with you, I think China is even a bigger threat. The Democratic Party has long been corrupt and has been doing some things that have been very questionable. And I agree with you about the Clintons. This whole thing goes back to Mena, Arkansas. And, it's no accident that, in Oklahoma City, that all the stuff for the Whitewater investigation, which everyone's forgotten 30 years after the fact, was still there. There's a trail of bodies behind that family and behind the whole deep state. And that's what really disgusts people. Let's look at what happened to Seth Rich.
Yes.
Let's ask some of these questions, but we don't even have the courage to do that. And to tell you the truth, it doesn't happen because too many in the Republicans have been part of the same problem. You said you were a Ron Paul guy, and I worked for Ron Paul in 2008, so we have that in common. You'll remember back in 2012 the tricks that the Romney people played at the Republican National Convention then, where they basically rigged the whole system against him. This is the deep state.
Yeah, that's the deep state. Okay, Tom, we got to take one more break for commercials. We'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion.
Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Some have maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. We're finishing up here with Tom Kaczynski. He's the author of the book, The Coming Civil War. It's available at Amazon.com. And Tom, there's a lot of good information you shared with us where, unfortunately, I'm going to have to agree with you that we may, in fact, be a lot closer to a major civil disruption than I was hoping to be the case. And you're right, it could break along any one of these lines: ideological, economic, immigration. It almost seems like it's only a matter of time before it's going to come apart. But I think one thing is very obvious, that despite its worldwide attacks on country after country after country, the reality is the United States is a dying empire lashing out in its death throes. And I don't think the United States could survive a new civil war, that it would balkanize. And that might be a better choice than going into a world war with the risk of nuclear weapons, which would be a bad day for everybody. So we've got about 3 minutes now for you to sum up to our listeners. Anything you want to share with them?
Yeah, I thank you for having me on, first of all. And to give people a little bit of optimism, I would just say that even though things do look very difficult, a lot of people want to believe in America. And if the right organizes itself and acts intelligently in the next 10 years, there's hope. We control the presidency. We still control the Congress. We control the judiciary. The military supports us. And most of the productive states and productive areas of this country are behind this. What has been lacking is not the ability of the majority, but just the vision and willingness to go ahead and do what's needed to take power. That's a difficult thing to say because it's going to force us to go to some very uncomfortable places where we can't do things the way we used to do them. Whether people would prefer that or to just let things die under the old rules is a question others will have to take. The books are designed to be easy to read. There's a lot of good factual information. Like you said, Amazon.com. Please check out my writing. Also, my website is www.nationalright.us. It's an effort to unite all the different parts of the right so that we can be together and we can mitigate the risk. You know, people look at organization on the right as providing some sort of militant threat, but the truth is, the more organized we are, the more able we are to defend our family, our community, our loved ones, our churches, the better served we will be in preventing conflict, because the real danger that comes from a radicalized left is if no one stands up to them. That's how the Bolsheviks took over Russia, and we shouldn't let Antifa do that here in the United States or anyone else. Remember, the reason they're lashing out is they're mad that they didn't have the election they thought they stole. There is an opportunity here, there. Wake people up, talk to others. My book can help, but whatever you do, keep talking and keep hoping, and as I do, keep praying.
Well, you're absolutely right there. The one thing we can all do now, and it's peaceful, is keep talking with each other. Forget about social media. It's become utterly worthless, but we can talk to each other face to face, get to know our friends and neighbors, and you'd be surprised. You're probably going to find a lot more people as concerned about what's going on in this country as you are. Anyway, Tom, we are out of time. Thank you very much for being with us. We're going to let you go.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
And let's see. There's the music. Okay, so that's it. Claire and I have to go run errands. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. And please, again, take what you have learned here, share it with everyone that you know. Use email, paper mail, and maybe it's time to go back to pamphlets and leafleting in this age of compromised social media. But we got to do something, absolutely. So please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility?